Ray. What do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
All right, yo, let's get into it.
Try to take over the world. Try to take over the world.
And greatest chaplain in the world, Mr.
Try
Lance
to
O'Neill.
take over the world.
What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? It's your boy KJ and the greatest chaplain in the world, Mr. Lance O'Neill, and we are back for this very special, very, very special Mother's Day edition of Two POGs. Thanks for joining us. What's up, Chappie? How you doing? How was your Mother's Day?
Pretty good. It's funny. My wife doesn't cook very often, but she actually cooked tonight. Afterwards, I was kind of laughing. Like the one Sunday I don't cook is on Mother's Day, but it's that's why I look at it. Mother's Day is every day. It shouldn't just be one day saying how much you love your mother. But I should probably call my mom after this.
Yeah, you should definitely call her before midnight. All right, for those of you guys who have been following along, we were expecting to have futurist Jesse Hurst on board with us. He's running a little bit late, having some technical difficulties over there in the great up north. So hopefully he'll be able to jump on the pod a little bit later. But in the meantime, we got more than enough political chaos to talk about in our own little space of the world. Chappie, let's say we jump into it, my brother. Let's get hot and heavy. I got two words for you. I got two words for you. Habeas corpus. Let's go. You already knew. You knew it was coming. You knew we had to talk about it. All right. So you know, I've been ready to call this administration the F word. I think they are definitely 2025's version of a fascist regime. You got Stephen Miller out there running point. And the dude is literally step by step with the playbook. They got the people in place. I think we just added Janine Pirro for head attorney in DC. Are you ready yet? Or are we still waiting? Yeah.
Judge Perino? Are we talking about an actual judge who has been a practicing lawyer and a practicing judge on the bench?
That is a very
at least she's qualified. You can't argue she's not qualified.
She is absolutely qualified, but that is a very low standard for it. And I will give you that. We can get into the nomination of which makes absolutely no sense. But let's go. Let's start with habeas corpus first. Let's talk about it. What are your thoughts?
Well, first, if you don't know what habeas corpus is, it's basically that anybody who is arrested or for whatever necessary reason has the right to demand habeas corpus, which is to be physically present in front of a judge. Okay. So one of the big issues right now is people getting deported and claiming, well, now they want habeas corpus. They want to be in front of the judge before they are sent out of the country. And so then the question becomes, well, is habeas corpus protected constitutionally? The answer is mostly, because the legislature can, in fact, suspend habeas corpus under the Constitution. It has been suspended as well previously. Now, it's been a while. I know Abraham Lincoln suspended habeas corpus during the Civil War, so a little while ago, 160 years ago. But he was using it under the War Powers Act, which is actually very similar to what Trump is kind of doing. He's saying, look, this is an assault on American sovereignty, and the people that are here are illegal, are not only here illegal, but they are a real and present danger to citizens of the United States, whether they be gangbangers, whether they be murderers, rapists, but then they're extending it all the way down to, well, you are. It's tough because all the way down to, are you supporting Palestine, which is essentially the equivalent to supporting Hamas,
that
is a terrorist organization. So it's a nuance for sure. It is a nuance for sure. I understand. I'm trying to argue it from the administrative side.
I got you.
And this is why, yeah, you and I have talked about this as far as the law, we like to think the law is black and white and this is what the law says and this is how it is. But if that was true, we wouldn't have lawyers. So if the legislature would just do a better job of saying this is what the law is and write it constitutionally to begin with, we wouldn't have these issues. So as far as habeas corpus goes, I will tell you firsthand my experience with habeas corpus was being a guard in Guantanamo from '02 to '03. So I was down there for about 8 months, 9 months. I'd like to consider myself that I was one of the good guards, meaning they were guard, they were detainees. I was a guard. I didn't go out of my way to harass them or do anything to them to make their lives any worse than it was. I was like, hey, they're still human beings as much, even though they're the most dangerous people in the world, which I think was definitely an exaggeration for many of them, considering how many were released afterwards. But one of the guys who was down there was funding for Al Qaeda. He was a middleman, and so he was basically money laundering and providing funds. And so he the whole time, oh no, I'm not. I wasn't that. I'm here by mistake. I was just caught up. Oh no. And he was kind of banking on, and I had a conversation with this guy. He had good English, and I had a conversation with him. And when it turned out, so what eventually happened was the lawyers basically said, dude, it's been ruled that since you're in Guantanamo, you're going to be tried as a foreign national. You don't have the rights under the U.S. Constitution because you are not in the United States. Guantanamo Bay is not technically the United States. And suddenly he started saying, well, what can I tell you to guys to help my case? And they said, tell us what you know. And suddenly he started singing like a little songbird, right? So, yeah. So the the part of it for me is tough because I get both sides. You'll have people, you included, I believe, who say if you are here illegally, and even if you're a gang member, you have to have the right of habeas corpus. You have to be in front of a judge and all that. My problem is for a lot of these detainees, I'm sorry, not detainees, a lot of these people that are in the country illegally, it's already gone through the judge. The judge has already written orders that say you're out. Then ICE comes in and grabs them. Well, now, if they've already had their trial, or their hearing, I should say, and the judge has already signed off on the deportation order, but they didn't appear, do they still have the right to habeas corpus? I think that's one of the nuances of this,
Well,
is a
see,
judge signing up.
in that case,
And it's not all.
Yeah, in that case, that's cut and dry. You had an opportunity to see the judge. You chose not to take that opportunity. Then, in my opinion, you got to go. Where I have an issue with is where we're literally snatching and grabbing people off of the street, sending them to Venezuela, and then being like, "Hey, my bad." Right? This administration is getting extremely loose with the regulations, right? They have found the magic loophole in the government where it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission, and they are taking full advantage of it. So you can call it what you want, but snatching kids off the street for protesting, Hamas, college kids protest, right? That's what they do. They protest. You snatch kids off the street, you throw them in cages and deportation centers, right? And then you hold them and say, oh, well, you don't have any rights because you were supporting a terrorist group because they wrote an opinion piece. That's sketch, right? Because now you're stretching the very limits of the Constitution, right?
Is it? But is it?
Absolutely.
Because, okay, so let's look at that a little bit differently.
Sure.
Anybody who's in this, let's stay foreign national students.
Sure.
Let's go with them by themselves. Okay.
Yep.
A foreign national student has to have a green card. I'm sorry, a visa, a student visa to be in this country.
That's correct.
If at any point the federal government who issues the green card says, we don't want you here anymore, it can be literally for any reason. It can be, we have too many kids here. We don't like the look of you. We don't like that you didn't pay your rent on time. We didn't like how you're walking down the street.
Yep.
You pissed off the wrong crossing guard, right?
Yep.
The federal government has a right to revoke the visa and there's no habeas corpus there. It's you
Yeah.
have no visa.
No. Yeah, that was
Now,
it. Yeah.
right. Now you need to GTFO. You need to get the
Yep.
family out, right? Okay.
Yep.
So that's a little bit different issue. I pretty much have little problem on those when you're out protesting, because again, I
So
support Israel, and I look at all this stuff that's going on in Palestine, and I've said, look, if you didn't want this stuff going, you shouldn't have gone in and done October 17th or October 7th. You go in and kick a guy in the shin and say F you, and he catches you and puts you on the ground and starts beating the living crap out of you, well, you probably shouldn't have kicked the guy in the shins.
oh yeah, but you can't exterminate an entire race of people for that though. That's where we start to get to. That's where we start to get the questionable actions, right? Like, I mean, Israel. If we were to take the names off of this aggression, right? Let's say we removed Israel and Palestine, and we just had country A and country B, right? There is no international court that will not rule this as intended eradication of a population, and that is absolutely a war crime.
So here's why I disagree. Now, I don't know what the numbers exactly are right now, but when you're looking at the percentage of Israeli citizens that died on that day, I believe it was close to 1% of the population from the terrorists and the hostages and all that. But
Wait,
it was
no way.
Six,
That was not a that was not a mass gathering.
0.1%.
Yeah. I was gonna say 1%.
Sorry.
Man, no way.
Yeah. So I look at it like this, and I say, okay, so if you're going to do that, and I'd be curious what the actual percentage in
Right.
Palestine is, because the other part of it is when October 7th happened, it was targeting civilians, purposefully targeting civilians, families, old people, young people. I saw some of the videos on Telegram, the unedited videos. It's as bad as anything you can possibly see, okay? Including babies getting stomped on and laughed at by these terrorists. Okay?
Let's be fair. Let's be fair. The Israeli army has had more than their fair share of the same. So
there have been
like, we cannot say eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, and then be like, oh well, they're bad because they were kicking babies and shit. Like the Israeli.
But the
Israeli army is known. Well, I mean, hold on before you go, because the Israeli army is known for playing bully ball and blending and blurring the lines. That's why the U.S. uses them as a hit job. So we know whenever you call in the Israelis, you're gonna get dirty. They're gonna cut off the body cameras. They're gonna cut off the body cameras, and then they're gonna throw a pistol under you, and they're gonna tell you stop resisting while they beat the shit out of you. That's just how the Israelis get down. But go ahead.
So do you dispute that Israel drops pamphlets and warns civilians to get out of certain areas, which is well documented?
Sure they do.
Okay.
But two things can be true. Two things can be absolutely true. They can absolutely, because they do the PR thing. They do the PR thing. Hey, we're dropping leaflets.
Of course.
We gave them fair warning. But there's nowhere in the hell you're gonna tell me. There's nowhere in the hell you're gonna tell me a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old or 2-year-old baby still wearing diapers getting shot in the head is an enemy combatant because we dropped pamphlets. Well, we dropped pamphlets a week ago.
Hold on. First of all, I agree that's any time that is a situation is horrible. I will also say this though: a lot of those videos that came out from Hamas were able to be shown that Israel was like, these people getting shot, getting sniped. We didn't even have troops there. That was on the southern border, and it was Hamas shooting their own people.
Wait a minute. There's been propaganda, right? But propaganda on both sides. The same way Israel's been like, oh, see, they killed that, they did it. But what I'm saying is you've had more than your fair share. Like when the Israelis destroyed that aid convoy on camera, when they clearly had their sirens flashed. And what did they do? They went on and they ran the PR and said, oh, we didn't know who they were. But then the video from the people inside the convoy clearly shown that they were properly identified. So, I mean, at a certain point, right, your reputation precedes you. and we know that the Israeli army, we know how they get down. That's why we use them, right?
Mhm.
I've worked beside them. I've trained them. I know how they get down. They will look at the rules and be like, yeah, okay. If we don't get caught, we don't get caught. If we get caught, we say, I'm sorry. Hey, man, listen, I'm going to give you the rules and you do what you want to do from there. And that's how they play. Even in training, they were roughing dudes up. And it was a training event. So I can only imagine what they're like with no cameras around and the hinges off and there's the handcuffs off, so to speak. So yeah.
Okay, KJ. So let's make this personal then.
Sure.
You are out on the street, and 5 or 6 guys come up, walking up around you, and they start harassing you,
Mm-hmm.
and they start, throwing stuff at you and kicking you, and you're just kind of doing everything you can, and they're hitting you and smacking you, and then finally you snap and you beat the crap out of all 6 of them, right?
Sure.
You just turn around and beat the living crap. You take the first one, drop him you Jack Reacher these guys, right?
Yep.
You pull the Jack Reacher.
Sure.
And then you're walking down the street a couple years later, and the same guys plus a couple more, they come up and they do the same thing, and you snap again. The whole time you beat the living crap out of them. Now fast forward a month or 2 later, maybe a couple more years later, right? Now this time they come in and they grab one of your kids and they stab your mom. What are you going to do? There's a point where Israel, there's only so many, and the whole time you've been going, hey, you know what? I know these guys. I've been watching these guys when I can. I make sure to take their guns away if I can get a single without I break in their house and maybe steal their guns, whatever. But these guys keep antagonizing, and that's the history of Israel. And I already know certain people are going to be like, oh, that's really simplified. Yeah, it is. It's very simplified because we're talking about a 70-year history. I just look at it as there's a point where Israel doesn't mess around because they can't mess around. When they start messing around, they will be wiped out. They will not be on this earth anymore.
I've heard that since the inception of Israel, and they have not been wiped out yet. But you know what they have done?
You're right.
They've wiped out a shit ton of Palestinians to the point to they're damn near extinct. That is where we have the blurring of lines, right? Call me a pessimist, but I've seen this playbook. It's we got to get to them before they get to us stuff, right? And every time we see that in history, it turns out the person that's throwing their hands up, it's like wrestling, right? It's always in wrestling, it's always the heel who cries to the referee, they're picking on me. And as soon as the referee turns their back, they kicking the damn guy in the groin or something like that. So I hear you. Absolutely. I'm not saying, hey, Allie, how you doing? Oh man, what's up, girl? How you doing? No, we I don't dispute at all that they have a right to defend themselves. But what
KJ, let me ask you a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
How many people now I can only go by the estimates here given by Gaza's health ministry, and my guess is Gaza's health ministry is higher than they're probably inflating the real number, right? Okay. But you're talking about wiping out. Okay, so how many Palestinians have been killed since the October 7th massacre? What's your guess?
I don't know, somewhere between 60 and 100K. Okay. Somewhere in. I'll give it a 40,000.
As of May 12th, 2025, which I don't know how they do that since today's May 11th, but I'm going by, Google. So maybe their numbers are off, but it says the Gaza's health ministry has reported 45,000. Okay. So how many people were in Palestine in 2023?
I don't know, what, maybe a mil, half a mil?
5.5 mil.
Okay.
So if you're going from 5.5 mil and 50,000 dead, let's see, 5 million, 500,000, 50,000. So you're talking about let's see, 500,000 is 10%, 50,000 is 1%. Okay. So 1% versus less than 1%, right? that's a lot of Palestinians still left around, and it's not
For,
justifying. It's not
for now,
I
but I got you. Hold tight though. Here's the thing, right? We say Taliban is a terrorist organization because they vowed to wipe Israel off the map, right? And then we say Hezbollah or
well,
Hamas,
are you talking
they're
Hamas,
terrorists.
Taliban, or
Yeah.
Hamas?
Well, Taliban for different reasons. But I'm saying when you categorize a
Oh,
terroristic organization, one of the main things of that terroristic organization is their intent to wipe another population off of the map to make them extinct, right? So when you hear the prime minister of Israel say that he won't stop until every Palestinian is dead, that's a problem on an international scale. Because if anybody else says it, it is a code red terrorist organization. But because we have to support Israel, because Israel must be defended and all the other stuff, we turn a blind eye to it. And I understand the politics of the game, right? Israel knows where all our bodies are buried, mainly because they're the ones doing the burying. So I understand why. But at the same time, we'd be remiss to sit back and say, oh, well, Israel has the right to defend itself.
okay. So I think what you're referring to is this. Netanyahu says Israel's goal is to wipe out all possibility of a Palestinian state. That's very different than wiping out all Palestinians. Fair? Because here's the other thing.
For that
You now
statement,
have
sure.
well, and that's the problem is when we you said that, hey, whose words, and right with
Sure.
Trump and all that.
Sure.
So you're talking about Israel with 10 million people, Palestine with 5.5 million people, and you go, well, that's not really a fair fight. Except Israel is on its own outside of really being the United States has definitely taken care of Israel. Got it. But as far as boots on the ground, you've got Palestine, Syria, Lebanon, Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, who you said Taliban, which would be, I'm not going to include the Taliban in that, but
Yeah, they're
ISIS, some of the terrorists, Egypt. So around Israel, you've got nobody that's friendly. Like that's one of the things that really blew me away about Trump's first 45 is I think it was the Abraham Accords is what they were calling it. Or was that Carter? Anyway, the peace deal, the peace deal that basically Trump had in place. And one of the things that happened with October 7th, if the reporting is accurate, is one of the reasons that Hamas attacked Israel was because there was going to be a peace deal where I believe it was Saudi Arabia was ready to actively recognize Israel. And so part of that was to shut down that recognition. So I mean, there's a lot of geopolitical stuff that's going on.
Sure.
I personally look I look at Israel like Liam Neeson in Taken, because Israel has a certain set of skills. You came in and you took its citizens, and they still don't forget there's still dozens of hostages that are in custody by Palestine and by Hamas. So I don't have a lot of I have sympathy for any non-combative that gets killed in any situation. You and I remember we talked about this a while ago, and you said that Hamas was not voted on by, it was kind of like they had to vote for Hamas.
I mean, the rules are the rules. I to be honest with you, Hamas and Israel is like low on the priority poll. If Hamas didn't want to be attacked, they shouldn't have left. They should have left Israel alone. However, Israel cannot just go around, oh, just because I believe this is mine, I'm just going to be the bully in the block, and then claim, oh, well, we have to take them out before they take us out. That's bullshit. We know that. You know that. Every sensible person knows that. But that's just how the world works, man.
Well, I
When
mean,
you got the
at the
3 minute power backing you, it's kind of like get down and lay down.
But at the same time, Israel has done a lot of stuff where they've even held their own people accountable. Maybe not as much as they should have for going in, setting up illegal settlements and all that too. So
Yeah, you talking about Netanyahu?
I'm talking about over about the last decade.
Oh,
There have been some efforts. I just
um,
said not as much as they should have.
I was gonna say
I
your boy Netanyahu is not. That's like saying Putin's trying to broker a peace deal.
You know, it's funny you just said that though, because I was actually thinking like Netanyahu is very much like Putin in the sense that he remembers what it's like to fight on the front lines, and so that definitely colors his his perception of everybody in the region.
Yeah,
Speaking of which, let's go to the next one.
let's go.
I think that's an interest with Putin. What do you think about Europe? To me, finally, really stepping up to the plate and standing up to Putin and basically giving him an ultimatum that by tomorrow, if Putin doesn't agree to an immediate ceasefire, they're going to slap sanctions on them. I don't know where this has been, but bravo! It's only taken 11 years since the first time
Yeah,
Russia came in
like
and took that land in Ukraine.
yeah, when he took Crimea, they should have done it. I'm sitting back like
Yeah,
I'm like, what are you waiting
2014.
on? But see, again, too, it's another thing where that's why I say I'm not anti-Trump, and I've said it
Yes,
till
you
I
are.
turn.
Oh, just come
Yeah,
on. Yes, you are.
no. I've said it till I've turned blue in the face. I recognize Trump for who he is and what he is, and he is a product of the union, right? I am more concerned about the people, and I told you that during the election cycle. It's not so much Trump because I can deal with one, but when you fill your administration full of people who are people full of ill intent, that's when I have a problem. And just like the sky is blue, it's almost prophetic, but that's a different story. So what I'm saying is when Putin annexed Crimea, right? They had an opportunity to stop it. When Putin first started lining troops up on the Ukrainian border, talking about it's a training mission, they should have seen that play because that's the same exact play that they ran in 39. Oh, we're just training. We're
Oh,
just
wait, but
we're
those
beefing
that
up.
would be that would be fascist. That would be Putin's a fascist, KJ.
But it's the same playbook that the Americans are running now.
Oh, absolutely was.
They're just running it on their citizens. But what I'm saying is history doesn't repeat itself, but it damn sure mimics itself, right? So when you see the play of aggression, right, and you have an opportunity to stop it, same thing I say with the United States now. You see the play of aggression coming. They may not be intently saying, "Hey, we're coming after the Reconstruction Amendment. Hey, we're gonna test the limits of the SCOTUS to see what we can get away with." They might not tell you that's what they're doing, but their actions very much so prove that is exactly what they're doing. And it is up to those of concern to stop it. And I think right now the United States is in a similar situation as Europe, except the population of the United States is Europe in this case, and the government is Putin in this case. They're going to keep prying and keep trying to get away with stuff. And unless the population decides that enough is enough, we don't know where this line is going to end at. Because we're certainly in a cycle of transformation. You know, how it ends is going to be up to what the population can stand. But it's interesting, man. It being a student of history, and I don't want to call myself an expert because it's so much. You learn one version of history and then you find something else that completely validates and contradicts everything you learned. So you got to relearn it again. That's the cool thing about history. You're always learning about nuances and changes, right? Um, but one irrefutable fact is there's always a hero and a villain, right? Somebody's famed conqueror is somebody else's, evil supervillain, right?
Yeah, it
Depending
depends
on
on who wrote.
that's what I'm saying. Depending on what story you read, so that's what makes it. And that's why I said I can't be mad being a student of history, but at the same time, I recognize it for what it is. I'm like, man, hey, they're running the same playbook. You should probably take a look at that.
Yeah, and you wonder why they didn't. But even though they didn't, they continued to didn't-ing,
Yeah.
if that's a word, right? So Trump comes in and Putin kind of lays low for 4 years. Now people say, "Oh, Trump and Putin are besties and all that." Okay, well, regardless, he didn't do it. Putin didn't do anything else during 45, and
Mhm.
then here comes 46, and I think Putin saw an opportunity and he took it because, again, he also saw that Europe was following kind of the pacifist
Yeah.
Chamberlain style Europe that was going all through there. Germany does not want to be involved in any wars. France, obviously, a very left government leaning government. The British have been going further and further left, and then opening their borders and being overrun by, especially Muslims.
I
And
find that extremely ironic, though, don't you? You have
uh,
to appreciate the irony in Britain's dilemma right now, right?
are you talking about for centuries Britain going in and taking over populations that were
Yeah,
not British?
yeah, and then just just to see it being the preeminent issue is like, oh, got too
That's
many
enough.
immigrants. It's like,
That's enough.
well, hell, man,
Well,
you
the
just spent
funny
two
thing
hundred
is,
years. Yeah, you just spent 200 years making damn near
well,
half the world.
no,
English.
five or six,
Yeah,
700 years.
yeah.
It's been
You made half the world English,
yeah,
and then you're
yeah,
upset that they decided to come home. Like,
yeah. No, you're right. It's probably actually 300 or 400 years, age of expiration. But yeah, you're right. But I mean, it's kind of amazing that if you go in and you have any real understanding of, and this is not a slam on Islam, this is not against Islam, but if you look at Islam, they are more than happy to play the very, very long game. When you're talking about the long game for Islam, we're not talking about years, months, or even years. We're talking about decades and centuries.
yeah,
And so, right now, what you're seeing in England is a takeover of many of the large. London has a mayor who is Muslim, and a lot of the other big cities do too. So they're taking over England bit by bit without shooting a single weapon, right? And don't get me wrong, of course, there are the here and there are the terrorists, the stabbings,
mhm,
and those are horrible. And
yep.
and the problem is, like, in America, you look at America and you see some of that going on, very limited in places like Minneapolis,
I would
where
I would say that it's more the Christian nationalists are taking over, right? And I say that with the distinction that Christian nationalists are absolutely and objectively different than Christians, right? So you have a Christian nation in America, right? And you have Christians in America. But then you have a subset of Christian nationalists who I deem as an extremist group, and they've infiltrated every level of government. And now you're starting to see the same thing that Britain is seeing with Muslims, we see now with Christian nationalists in America, right? And I'll give you an example, right? In England, I was just talking to a buddy of mine over in across the pond, as you will, and they're upset that the Muslims are trying to infiltrate the school system and get equitable rights to prayer and decide what needs to be taught and what books can be in the school, and it's becoming problematic, right? And I said, man, that's interesting because here in the States we have a lot of Christian nationalist organizations who are doing the exact same thing. So to me it's one and the same, right? I love Christians. I consider myself a Christian. However, I also understand and recognize Christian nationalism is the most prominent issue that nobody's addressing in the states right now.
I I don't want to discount your concern,
It's hard, right?
right? Um, but I will say this: and this goes the difference of viewpoint, right? You're coming at it from the blue side, and I'm coming at it from the red side.
Sure.
You're looking at it saying, as a, I'm just going to say Democrat, so it's easier, or
Sure.
let's just say with blue and red, right?
You're good.
As a
Blue and
blue,
red.
yeah. So as a blue, you're looking at these Christian nationalists coming in and trying to take over government and do those things. As a red, I've seen that happening and has happened, and well-established entrenchment by what I would call, and what Trump calls, and now, I mean, I wouldn't call it that until Trump, but the deep state, that's what it is. It's those leftists and socialists, and those who are more than happy to become part of the New World Order, who think that we are all part of the community of the world, that humanism is more important than any religion, all the stuff that goes against the Judeo-Christian foundations of this country. Now, people forget one of the things about the Judeo-Christian founding of this country was that we don't have a national religion. There is no single religion endorsed by the United States, and never will. That's the First Amendment to the Constitution. That's how
Yeah.
important they thought it was.
Yeah.
It'll never happen because, well, I shouldn't say it'll never happen. I think it's more likely. Honestly, the way things go, I think it's more likely that Islam or Mormonism becomes the national, because we're the only two groups that continue to have babies at a rate that is well above replacement level, right?
Yeah.
So, and so I'm not overly worried about either of those. But I think most people would probably feel a little more comfortable with LDS versus Islam, because, and anyway, without going into the whole religious side of it. But I think that when you're talking about these things, because this goes back to what we were talking about, Islam versus Judaism in Israel and Palestine. You're always, it's strange that you're going to have this conflict, because, like, realistically, most Christians would say, biblically, it says you should be peacekeepers, you should be peacemakers, you should turn the other cheek, you should do those things. And then you have people on the far right that are Christian nationals that say, well, yeah, Jesus said to turn your cheek the other time, and if somebody smacks you on the cheek, turn, how many times? It's 7 times 70. Well, we've been smacked on the cheek more than 70 times, 70 times. So now it's time to go in like the temple and flip over the table in the temple and go crazy like Jesus did. Okay. Meanwhile, you have people on the left go, Jesus was bisexual. Don't you guys know? Jesus didn't actually have gender. So it's the ridiculousness of, like, you guys just read what the Bible, if you're going to make the argument of what the Bible says, A, you should probably know what the Bible says, and B, use it in context. And that's a big problem. Most people don't use it in context, or they leave things out. And they do that with quotes too, like not biblical quotes necessarily, but those as well. Like, I remember one: the customer is never wrong, right? Well, the full quote is, the customer is never wrong. The customer is never wrong in terms of taste, I think, is the full quote. Which means, yeah, they, like, the customer's never wrong. If they say they want a pink flamingo fluffy outside their door, they're not wrong, because that's their taste, right? Another one was, what is it? When you copy somebody, is the sincerest form of flattery.
Oh yeah, what's that? Imitation is the sincere form of flattery.
Yeah, but there's more to it.
They don't continue to quote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Imitation is the clearest form of flattery when it comes to the mediocre.
Yeah.
Reaching for greatness or something like that. It's like, yeah, you suck, and so you're trying to copy somebody who's awesome, but you suck, so you can't reach that level.
My favorite one is the Constitution is the founding document, the principal document of this nation, and I've read it cover to cover, and I keep it close to my heart, because this is how much it means to me. But they don't know anything in the Constitution. That is my favorite so far, but at least to you anyway.
Okay, let's be fair. The Constitution is not the easiest read. A. B, you have lawyers, you have judges, and you have Supreme Court justices who argue what the Constitution says. So, like, for me, that's kind of when I go back, and Again, perception is reality. So I read certain things and I go, well, of course Alito's right. That's exactly what it says. And somebody else goes, especially when they lose. Like if it's Clarence Thomas and Alito, and they're going, hey, we're over here, and the other seven are over there. I can go, well, clearly, yeah. I mean, it's Thomas and Alito, but that's my worldview. Is yeah, I agree with them out of my worldview, so of course I'm going to be more partial to them. But I can't really argue that the other seven are idiots. I think the dissents generally, to me, the dissents are honestly better reading
Listen,
than the
I
majority stuff.
I have been pleasantly surprised with SCOTUS this season. Like I told you, but see, I told you before. I said I am going to be. I knew going in. I said Trump 2.0 is going to test the limits of SCOTUS, and I was especially. And I remember telling you specifically, I have to watch Clarence because he is such an originalist. I have to see how much he's gonna let POTUS get away with. Him and Alito are hilarious. Have you been reading the judgments and like the commentary from the
Some of them,
justice?
yeah.
Holy, they are. I can only imagine in my mind. And you got the baby justices who are they're more moderate than I would imagine the Reds would have preferred when they elected them, especially
they are not textualists.
They are not at all, and that is pissing this administration off. And he's like, dude, I I love the chaos because the scope. I'm telling you, and I don't know why, man. I tell people all the time, like I knew for a while, like I told you, I've been done with Congress for a long time. Like they are ineffective. They're just we should flush all of them out. But SCOTUS is like that's why I told you I didn't when I think we were having a conversation about Amy Coney Barrett and Kavanaugh when they were getting elected, right? And a lot of people on the left was in an uproar about this, that, and that. And I was like, hold on. I was like, if you go back and you look at the way they've ruled, this may not be as bad as you think. And everybody, I remember I got destroyed. I remember for like 2 weeks straight, I got destroyed, right? Bootlicker, this, that, and the other. And then I I don't want to toot my own horn and pat myself on the back, but I gotta tell you, man, the baby SCOTUSes, even Katanji, the baby SCOTUSes, I am super impressed with, man. It's just I knew that those older SCOTUSes were going to have an aneurysm because they're such originalists. And then when you have guys like Stephen Miller and you have Pam Bundy and these guys are saying, oh, well, the Constitution is subjective. I can just see the vein in Clarence Thomas's neck bulging like what? It's so Alito even had to come out and I think he was doing an interview. Was it last week or week before last? He did an interview where he sat back and said, listen, judges rule, and that's the Supreme Court. We rule based on the Constitution. End the story. Like he didn't say no names. He didn't say what it was what it was sent to, but he let it be known clearly, like, yo, this is what we judging off of. Stop the madness, right? I'm
So here's the funny thing. There's two parts of that, and remind me that second part about the judges. But
yep.
In 2019, when everybody was freaking out about Kavanaugh because when whoever died at the end of Obama's, and then the Republicans blocked.
That was Ruth, baby Ruth. They wouldn't let her.
Died?
Yeah, they wouldn't let her feel Ruth Ginsburg.
I don't remember who it was. No. That was 2019 because it was in 2015 somebody else passed and that's when it got blocked, and then Trump went with whoever the first one was. But RGB, remember, they were all talking about her. Oh, you might be right. They were talking about her retiring. You might be right. Yeah.
It was Ruth.
You're right. You're right. So the Republicans blocked it, right? And then in 2019, before Trump was out, somebody died, and the Democrats weren't able to block it, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things for me was I said, well, look, I'm more than happy for Trump to get this and put it in, and everybody's like, oh, they're going to have a Republican and majority, blah blah blah. And I said, you guys, I don't think you understand. Like, if you put textualists in there or conservatives in there, they're going to limit Trump's power. Like, they're going to. That's what traditionalists are going to do. And so that's the funny thing is how many times now have we seen where this administration is pushing the boundaries, and honestly, I don't blame them for pushing the boundaries. And then SCOTUS is doing their job of saying, no, uh, that's too far. Now, here's the other thing that this is one of my bigger problems with what you said it was Alito that said it.
Yeah, that was Alito.
Okay, so what did he say? Because I want to know the quote before I
I'll see if I can go
list.
get it. Hmm?
Okay, because words matter, and the way you
Mhm.
said that, there's a little, there's something I want to say, but I want to make sure it was the right quote because I would hate to have the wrong quote here.
Cool. Give me a sec. I think I can get it up.
Yeah, no problem. Luckily, it's just Allie. So hi, Allie. I didn't say hi earlier. Maybe Allie's not even on anymore. Who knows? Maybe she's just got in the background with them. That's great.
Oh,
Where's that in Liberty, by the way?
they pop in usually a little bit later.
Oh.
A little bit later. I can't find it. Jesus, where is he? I cannot find it right now.
Oh,
there he goes.
Liberty's on.
Talk about something. Fill the air while I find it. It's gonna take me a second.
So if you find it, and this is why I say that, okay, the judicial. Let's go back to Saturday morning cartoons and the Schoolhouse Rock. There are 3 branches of government. There is the legislative, which makes the laws. There's the judicial, which interprets the laws, whether they're constitutional or not. And then there's the executive, which is supposed to enforce the laws. And it was never the intent of the framers that I can find that the intent was that the judicial was the end all be all, and whatever the judicial said, that was just it. And they trump the other 2. And that's where we're at, I think, 206 years later, where the judicial has, especially the Supreme Court, has, I think, way more power than the framers meant them to have. I think it was supposed to be much more equal. And you can say, well, they don't really have that much power. But when you have a federal judge in, let's just say randomly, let's say New Mexico, right? And New Mexico judge says, I don't like what the administration is doing. And we've had this argument, but I'm going to sign an injunction that limits what the president of the United States can do when it comes to border security or when it comes to ejecting people from this country or whatever it is, right? And so again, this falls back to a large degree to the legislature not doing their jobs. It also comes down to what you and I and Greg Easterbrook were talking about a few weeks ago. If the executive branch basically says to the judicial, even the Supreme Court, and I understand the constitutional crisis and all that, right? But if the executive branch says, okay, we're going to deport all MS-13, we don't care what the court says. You can say habeas corpus to take it full. The judicial say, hey, if you don't do this, we're going to file an injunction, and the White House says, and what's going to happen? You could impeach, and that's where the legislature comes in and would be doing their job in that case. But at the same time, impeachment's a pretty high bar these days. And so are Republicans going to turn around and impeach Trump? I doubt it. I mean,
do you think they would do that?
Okay, so
that's a bridge. That's a bridge very, very far, man. I don't know.
Right? No. I don't think they would.
Congress has the balls, honestly.
So okay, but let's go down what the argument from the left is. Okay, is that okay? We're going to take it full circle with habeas corpus. The courts rule, including the Supreme Court, that and I don't think this is right personally, but every person in this country illegally has to be in front of a judge because of habeas corpus. Now, that includes those that the order has already been signed by a judge. It includes those who have missed their hearings. Whatever the case is, they have the opportunity, but they don't care. So then they call up the lawyer and they say, hey, I'm at the ICE detention center. They gave me the one call. habeas corpus. The lawyer goes running down habeas corpus, and there's enough of these that it goes immediately up, an emergency up to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court says every single person who is arrested, whether legally in this country or not, no matter what their status, whether they are a student, whether they're an MS gang member, or whether they're just somebody that is scheduled for deportation, has to have habeas corpus. They have to personally, physically appear in front of a judge. And Trump says, nah, we're not gonna. We're gonna take them and throw them on a plane, and we're gonna send them out to what country just said that there was a country that said they were in negotiations for taking a lot of these guys. I don't remember who it was.
I don't know. I know we're in Venezuela now, but I can't remember. Libya.
Yeah,
Libya.
there was
Gaddafi's spot.
whoever it was. Okay, so let's say Guyana, French Guyana. Let's make it interesting. Let's make it exotic. They're gonna send people to French Guyana, right? And so they keep grabbing. El Salvador was a few, but there's another country that just recently said they're in negotiations.
I think it's Libya. I think Libya is the hot spot.
Was it Libya? So
yep,
it may have been hot spot literally. Okay, well, whoever it is. So then the Trump administration says, nope, we're going to keep doing it, and the Supreme Court says, no, here's what it like. We are keeping habeas corpus, and the Trump administration says, no, we're not going to. We are going to keep doing this. So then, what is the next step? The only way to make any change in that situation, I believe, would be impeachment. Now,
well, Congress would have to clarify. Before impeachment, Congress would have to clarify, which is that's a goal that. But a lot of that would be circumvented if Congress would just do their damn job in the first place, which is why I loathe Congress so much. Like, hey, dude, make it plain. Yeah. You had a majority. If you decide there's no way the blue team can block you. If you decide that this is what it's going to be, then that's just what it's going to be. The problem is we have too many representatives in both chambers of Congress that are afraid to have a decision on their record because it'll come back to bite them. That's why I told you.
Oh, no, they're going to get primaried.
Yeah, the government's full of grifters, man. They don't want to cut off the money train. So they're not going to make a decision. Like I said, depending on which way the wind blowing, Lindsey Graham is going to bend and fold. Like I'm so disgusted with our Democratic.
Somebody sent me something on. It was so funny. Somebody sent me something on Lindsey Graham, some tweet, right? And it was just this ridiculous tweet. He goes, Lindsey Graham is the most spineless guy. And I went, dude, this is clearly a parody. But the funny thing is, it could have been real.
That
Lindsey Graham is the perfect example of that.
Yeah, that's what it's so sad. It's sickening, man, to where I don't care what you stand for. Fucking stand for something. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not that difficult. I can understand and respect you saying, hey, this is not how it's going to be. And until enough people care enough to vote me out, this is the way it's going to be. I can deal with that all day long. But what I don't like is people getting in there and being like, oh, well, it depends. I don't know. It bothers. That's why we talked about what was that? Senator Murkowski a week ago. Murkowski out of Alaska a couple of weeks ago. Well, we're too scared to make a decision because there's a lot of money involved, and we're going to get primary
threatened. We're getting threatened.
Yeah.
With what? You're getting threatened with being primaried? Gasp.
Yeah, you're getting threatened with somebody exercising their democratic right. Like
so. Yeah, and so like you have it on both sides. Honestly, I do think Democrats do a better job of when a push comes to shove, whipping their caucuses and passing what they want to pass. But they're not perfect by any stretch because you look at when they had the House and the Senate from 2020 to 22, when Biden's first 2 years, they could have passed a lot of this legislation. They could have done some things and gotten the border in line and all that, but you had Manchin and you had Sizemore from
those
how do you say that?
Christian Sinema. Yeah,
and then she and of course, like Sinema, she was it blew me away. It's like I expected her to be this goofy Green Party lefty out in the woods type guy, and instead she was like, no, look, I am a absolute liberal. That said, there are still certain parts of the government that the government needs to do things the right way, and I don't think they're doing the right way. Now, there's also the plus I need my pound of flesh.
Thank
The
you.
Bob,
Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah,
Bob
I was gonna say
Menendez.
that she was open to the hype. Shit, I think she was trying to run as an independent
Yeah, and she did. Yeah,
last.
but you look at but at the same time you look at Fetterman, who legitimately has brain damage, and the Democrats dragged him
We
across
knew,
the
yeah,
line.
but we knew that beforehand. Remember, and we talked about how that was going to come back to bite him in the ass because
Oh, of course. Well, there's one issue with Fetterman. Fetterman's like, look, if you're going to come in and you're a Palestinian lover and you're supporting Hamas and the people that are on these campuses, you need to GTFO. So F you guys, I'm with Israel. And suddenly he was like, oh, Fetterman doesn't take his medication. He's
no,
not doing his.
the
And
reason
so it's a
why
hit piece.
the reason why is because before Trump got elected, Fetterman was quiet as a church mouse pissing on cotton. He's another grifter who's just trying to kiss the ring of who's in power.
I don't think Fetterman has. I don't think Fetterman hasn't. I don't think Fetterman had any pull. Honestly, I think that's part of it.
What I'm saying is, if Harris had won the election, right, and the country was trending blue, you would not hear a word from Fetterman. You would, and that's what pisses me off about him. This isn't an issue that you care about. This is an issue that gets you further along the line to protect your pockets. You're full of shit. You're a grifter.
Maybe. It's
but then again,
possible.
He's going to get primaried, and I don't think he survives the primary.
I don't think he does.
He should have survived the first one, but the Democratic machine just had to have. And I keep telling.
Oh yeah, Tammany Hall absolutely won that for him.
Just because you have a blue or red sticker beside your name does not mean you're true. That's just you have found the easiest path to get to the money. And once you get in there, your true colors come out. We've seen that from both parties.
And maybe I'm naive, and maybe I do try to look at people best case scenario, and maybe I look at Fetterman and go, I hope he actually believes that Israel's in the right. And if he doesn't, no, I try to give benefit of the doubt to a Democrat. But again, I mean, I look at it's so ridiculous. Have you ever driven through West Virginia? You should see how many buildings have Senator Byrd's name on different buildings. The National Guard building up there and all that stuff. What's he say about Kevin?
No, he was talking about I am Canuck. Sure.
Yeah. Oh, my favorite part of the whole just to side note, the whole thing with Barbie that cracks me up is when the feminist women were freaking out. It's like, oh, of course Ryan Gosling's the man who's in the movie is the one who gets nominated for an Oscar. And I'm like, he was the funniest part of the movie. Are you kidding? I liked that movie. I liked I'm blanking on her name that played Barbie. I liked the speech that America, what's her name, gave. I liked the movie. But Ryan Gosling, he kind of stole that movie.
It was surprisingly a lot better, man. I just
Oh yeah. But it was so funny them freaking out. A feminist movie, and here's the man who gets nominated for that. It's like, well, okay, whatever. But yeah, I look at and we rehash this every we can talk about the stupidity of Congress. We can talk about how bad journalists are. We can talk about all this stuff, and that's just kind of how it goes. There are certain things in America that until hey, we're not going to put up this crap anymore, and we're going to get rid of you to say just and say like even journalists. So yeah, like what's his face from like NBC or no CNN, the bald guy, the guy looked like a potato that the people.
Talking about the black guy, right?
Money.
Black guy with glasses.
No, the white guy.
Oh.
The white egg looking, he's a potato. They used to give him a hard time for deer. They would say anytime he would tweet.
Hold on. We're coming up on an hour.
Yeah, we got to hit the hour mark. Yep.
Yeah. So all right. Hey, we're coming up on the hour.
People.
We are still going to stay here. We're going to keep rolling, but we got to say goodbye to our guys who are streaming live on the CTR network. We'll see you guys next week. If you want to keep on the episode, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, wherever we are. Come see us on there, but we got to say goodbye. We're signing off on CTR network. Thank you guys for logging in and spending time with us. Check it out on the app, the Roku channel, CTR, man. Enjoy yourself. Bye, you guys. All right, we are back. 1 minute has passed. Boom, there we go. All right, so 1 hour has passed. Get back to it. I'm sorry, Lance. I didn't mean to cut you off, brother. Go ahead.
No, that's fun. I knew what it was. Yeah. So no, again, there's certain things in America that it's the same old, same old. We've got crappy people who are in Congress that want to be there to make the money. They don't want to solve any problems because we were talking about Brian Stelter, who's now he moved from CNN to Substack and doing his brand of journalism.
Yes, now the gloves are off. I can be who I really am, which is bullshit. I got a question for what I want to switch gears a little bit for this next segment. Kristi Noem is running out of money.
Is she?
Yes, the department is running out. So they had a congressional hearing last week.
What is she? Which department is she in?
Kristi Noem is HHS.
DHS? HHS.
Yeah, DHS. I'm sorry, DHS. So they went to Congress asking for more money, and they kind of blew through their budget. I wish, man, if I'd have known we were gonna do this, I'd have had clips aired up, but that's okay. We'll roll with the punches. So during the congressional hearing, they was like, "Hey, I'm not sure if you understand how this works, but we can't give you more money than you were already allocated in your budget this year." So it was like, "Where did the money go?" And she was like, I don't know." It was like, "I don't know." And Congress was like, "Well, there's not really a lot we can do because you got to make it to the end of September until we can fund you again." Man, I gotta go find the clip. That was hilarious. But I want to come. What else? Kristi.
Well, she testified in the White House's 2026 budget request 5 days ago.
That might have been it.
Lawmakers question. I'll bet it's this. Lawmakers question Noem over cuts to FEMA TSA.
No.
Grants testifies before Senate. DHS budget. It's got to be that. Funding partnership, but it doesn't really break it down.
I gotta
funding
see.
2 days ago. Homeland Security told lawmakers her office is working to restore funding to the National Fire Academy. Nope. Reshaping workforce emails. Harvard sends energy.
This one. Hold on. I wonder if I can get it to come up.
Thank you very much.
I wonder if I can get it to come up. So, I mean,
DHS. Do you know what DHS's budget is?
I don't know offhand. I know. So they were at the hearing, and then I found Chris Murphy's interview where he was interviewing and asking her what happened with the money. But you're running out of money.
Let's hear it.
It's 6 minutes long, but I don't want to play all of it.
No,
So
we'll find, just play
we'll find a way to cut it. Hold on, let me see if I can get it shared. Hold on. But yeah,
well, you can just stop. You can just stop it when we get tired of it.
Yeah, you know what? We're gonna stay live, and let's do this live. Where we at? Share screen. This is called producing on the fly, baby. Producing by the seat of your pants. Here we go.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, Madam Secretary. Thank you for being here. I'm sorry that I missed your call yesterday. I look forward to working closely with you. I say this with seriousness and respect, but your department is out of control. You're spending like you don't have a budget. You're on the verge of running out of money for the fiscal year. You are illegally refusing to spend funds that have been authorized by this Congress and appropriated by this committee. You are ignoring the immigration laws of this nation, implementing a brand new immigration system that you have invented that has little relation to the statutes that you are required, that you are commanded to follow, as spelled out in your oath of office. You are routinely violating the rights of immigrants who may not be citizens, but whether you like it or not, they have constitutional and statutory rights when they reside in the United States. Your agency acts as if laws don't matter, as if the election gave you some mandate to violate the Constitution and the laws passed by this Congress. It did not give you that mandate. You act as if your disagreement with the law, or even the public's disagreement with the law, is relevant and gives you the ability to create your own law. It does not give you that ability. Let's start with your spending. You are on track to trigger the Anti-Deficiency Act. That means you are going to spend more money than you've been allocated by Congress. This is a rare occurrence, and it is wildly illegal.
I didn't even know that.
Your agency will be broke by July, over 2 months before the end of the fiscal year. You may not think that Congress has provided enough money to ICE, but the Constitution and the federal law does not allow you to spend more money than you have been given or to invent money. And this obsession with spending at the border, as the chairwoman mentioned, has left the country unprotected elsewhere. The security threats to the United States are higher, not lower, than before Trump came to office. To fund the border, you have illegally gutted spending for cybersecurity. As we speak, Russian and Chinese hackers are having a field day attacking our nation. You've withdrawn funds for disaster prevention. Storms are going to kill more people in this country because of your illegal withholding of these funds.
That's jeez.
Okay, here's my problem with this. Like, I know they don't, but at what point do they? Where's the question? You know what I mean? Like, if I was Noam and they both do it. Don't get me wrong, they both do it, right? But they just go and go and go and go, and then and that's just what I have to say. So how do you answer that? And they're like, you were just talking for like 5 minutes straight. How am I supposed to answer
which
that?
part? Yeah, which part?
Yeah, and so like you're doing this and you're doing that, and my guess is she's going to turn around and say, well, Senator, I don't agree with your assessment. We are well aware of the budget and we're doing the things we need to. And one of the reasons our budget is the way it is because we are. Oh my gosh, you went through the whole thing. Look, she didn't even get. We don't.
Yeah,
even have her
he
answer.
talked the whole thing. I'm cool with cutting it right there.
Yeah, that's fine because I get. But and I don't know what she said, so don't get me wrong. I'm not defending her in terms of what she said, but my guess is she's saying things like, well, we are, when you're part of the organization that is rounding up people that are here illegally, that costs money and that man hours and blah, 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 blah. And so we've had to spend more. And so, part of that is, but the funny part about him saying is it's wildly, and we don't just give you more money. Really? Is that why you don't have emergency budget measures that every single year, all the time happen? So, I don't know. Is her budget out of control? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. And if it is, okay, there needs to be something done. But at the same time, here would be my question. Like, if I'm dude trying to actually get to an answer, right? I would say something. If I'm Murphy, and I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt that if he actually wants an answer, because he doesn't. Remember, he said, I'm sorry you missed your call. I'll get with you later and we'll talk about this.
Yeah, a lot of that was just for show, right? I want to all bark, no bite.
A senator
right?
that was grandstanding and spotlighting?
But I will tell you, I like Murphy. Murphy is one of the few new Democrats who I might not always agree with them, but they give a shit. And I can take that as
better
a starting
than Blumenthal.
That's what I'm saying. I can take it as a starting point. Like, if you care, that means we have a starting point, right? Yeah, no, you're right, Liberty. I don't think voters believe that, but voters are dumb, right? I'm gonna be honest. I don't care if it's controversial. An American, a citizen,
they're ignorant for sure.
Yeah, an American, a citizen, is a smart, informed individual. Americans, citizens, are ignorant, and we've proven it time and time again. No matter the voting block, no matter the representation, you have citizens voting against their interest in every political cycle, right? And that's irrelevant. That's irrelevant whether you're blue or red. You have this large block of constituents who blindly vote for colors like they're representing gang members instead of voting on issues. And that I think is really, really bad.
Yeah, so Liberty, I agree with you. We've talked about this before that I think one of the number one, if not the number one issue is the border. We've talked about how the trans issue came up. I think the trans issue was more just one of those shiny objects that was easy to kind of show how out of touch the Dems were. Because if you're a common sense person and you say girls sports should be for girls, and you have the other side saying no, 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 that's an easy win. And so I think that's why that became such a big deal, when realistically it's a minor issue that should be fixed pretty easily, and for the most part has been.
Did I show you
But
the one where did I show you the one where they said she's a third gender now? Did you see that one yet?
oh yeah, I saw that one. That was
Yeah,
hilarious.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, what that was too, though, is she's talking to somebody else, and then the dude who is interview. That's not really him interviewing. It's one of
Yeah, no. Yeah, that was a cut in,
yeah,
but just listening to her talk about it is just, I think for good or bad, people like that have taken over the voice and the platform of the blue brand, right? So when the average American hears those words, that's the image that pops up, right? You know, for better or for worse, that's the image that pops up. Like when you hear BLM, or you hear woke or something like that, right? You automatically, inherently have an image that pops up, right? Based off of portrayals. Same way with MAGA, right? You sit back and you say, oh, well, when you hear MAGA, you think a certain way. But in real, and the real picture is just, most of it is just people trying to live their lives, right? And they're just trying to do what they believe is right based off of how they grew up in their belief system. And that's where the media has they've manipulated their responsibility and take advantage of people's let's say inherent trust or inherent biases, right? And they amplify it to and it's perverse what they're doing, man. That's why I really wish I guess would have came on this week, but that, I mean, I'm sure we'll get him rescheduled, man. He had some issues and he apologized, but we'll get him rescheduled. But yeah, man, that bothers me to no end, because I don't like to see people being manipulated either way, right? Good, bad, indifferent. And I am principled in the fact that I would rather deal with an outright racist, right? A devout racist who tells me, and a devout separatist who says, I don't like you, I don't want you near me, you go left. I don't have any ill intent. If you decide to do great things, just do it over there, right? Yeah. I can deal with that all along. Like I told you, the greatest threat to societal progress is a fake ally. And we got too much of that in society. We got too much of that, too much lip service where people are so quick to say they support a cause, whether it's red or blue. But when it's time to influence policy that truly affects or benefits people, they're silent. And that's where, I guess that's where the frustration and the irritation for me kind of hit.
For me, part of the problem is that the best and brightest don't go into politics because we've seen how dirty and gross it is, right? Go back, let's say 30 years, and it's 1996. Instead of Bob Dole on the Republican ticket, it's Thomas Sowell, an actual conservative, an actual. Now he would have been the pre-Obama, but
I would have. You know what? I would have took a Powell ticket. We talked about that before, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I would have voted for Colin Powell too.
Yeah, the missed opportunity of Powell.
Sure. So, and I'm just talking about the reason I say Thomas Sowell. You could say Krautheimer. You could talk when I'm talking about a talented conservative intellectual, right?
Right.
And at the same time, now you could say there are some people on the left that are seen as intellectuals as well. That I mean, like if Krugman, who wrote for the Economist, who won the Nobel Prize for economy, if he was running, I'd be like, what? Well, so Liberty, I think Ted Cruz is I like Ted Cruz too, but Ted Cruz is a red meat Republican. I don't necessarily think he is a conservative conservative stalwart. Like I take Mike Lee over Ted Cruz. That said, I originally thought Dan Crenshaw was going to be a really strong standard bearer for Republicans as a conservative, and he has not been that. He's turned into a grifter.
Surprise.
And they all do it. AOC, people who think AOC was going to be this, leftist, a somebody who stands up for the workers because she comes from a common background and she was just a bartender, so she's going to work for the common person. No. AOC, yeah, she's a cult of personality. Ted Cruz is to a degree. Crenshaw was trying to be. I mean, Trump for sure is.
AOC is trying to take over Bernie's banner, right? I think Bernie has taken.
And he's ready to hand it to her.
And I think he's gonna pass the baton to AOC for this next wave, man.
I can't tell you how many Republicans I see online and on X say, please let her be her and Crockett. They're like, please let that be the ticket.
I will tell you, be fearful of Crockett.
Nope. She has so many idiocracy moments. You can say she's smart, and she might be, but she has so many sound bites out there that are just ridiculous.
Here's the problem you got with Crockett, and I love Jasmine. Jasmine is a fire starter. She's a firebrand. And if you stand in front of the camera long enough, you're bound to make a gaffe. See President Trump, see Margaret Taylor Greene, see pick a person, right? Jasmine Crockett is smart enough to move the masses, and she gives a shit, and she's real. You can sit back and say, yeah, oh, well, I don't know, but I'm telling you, Crockett is the anti-Trump. She is to young Democrats what Trump was to moderate Republicans looking for a face in a movement. I would be
more than AOC.
Yeah, absolutely, because AOC is
really
because here you have progressive fatigue, and that's the problem that the Democrats are going to have to face with. I believe they got progressive fatigue, right? Like, hey, man, we don't care. We don't care. Nothing you say right now is resonating, right? You talk about prices. We don't care. You talk about what I care about is, am I safe at the border, or am I perceived to be safe at the border? And do I, or can you govern from a position of strength? And I don't think the Democrats have picked that up yet, right? Like everything you hear from the Democrats is, oh, the only reason you say that is because you hate Trump. No matter who's the messenger from the Democratic Party, the only thing the average person on the street is hearing is, I hate Trump. Oh, we're doing this to stop Trump. And as long as the perception of your platform is you hate Trump, you're destined to fail. It doesn't matter what face you put in there.
What are you for, not what you're against.
Right. I think the red team would be exceptionally happy to have Jasmine Crockett stay in Texas and attack her from there. Because if she is allowed to gain momentum on a national stage, she could be problematic.
I don't think so. And that's fine. I mean, that's
just
an opinion. I just don't think even now, if you say in 2040, maybe where
you talking about no, I'm not saying like for a national president, like for a presidential contender. She's far from that right now.
Oh, that's what I was saying.
No. 28. If we're talking 28, I'm looking at the boy they passed over in Pennsylvania, Shapiro. Buttigieg is another one who has secretly held his own. I think he's going to have an issue because of the whole homophobia thing.
I don't think so. I think he's going to run. You remember was it 2012? Scott Walker for Minnesota, who originally had a lot of buzz around him, and then his personality just fizzled because he really didn't have one. That's
Well,
how I see Buttigieg.
we'll see a lot of that's going to come down into the primaries. Like he's going to have to be battle tested in the primaries. Like you got even Brashear out of Kentucky is a name to be looking out for in 2028. Like I am.
Who was it this week that came out and said, I like governors because governors have it might have been the former Republican Speaker of the House. He was on Bill Maher, and he said, I like governors because governors have experience in actually running states. They actually have the experience of doing some of these things, and the senators, and that they don't have that type of experience.
Right.
And so, if I do think, again, I think you're going to have, on the Republican side, you're going to have DeSantis 2.0. You're going to have, of course, J.D. Vance. I think Vivek, if he was smart, he actually would have run for governor of. He's running for. Is he running for governor or Senate of Ohio?
I think he was trying to run for a Senate seat. But what happened to
smart? If he's smart, I think he would do better as a governor and get that governor time under your belt. I still think Abbott out of Texas is a great pick.
I think
Greg Easterbrook. Greg Easterbrook has said the governor of Rhode Island he really likes. He's brought up Gretchen Whitmer from Michigan. I don't see her. I think she's.
I don't see her surviving on the national stage, man. Like she's good. She's good regionally, but she reminds me of what's the boy out of California?
Newsom.
I don't think Newsom stands a chance. Like Newsom is the Democratic version of Ron DeSantis, right? Like he's pseudo popular, but like if you put him under fire, he folds like a wet blanket every time. I don't think.
Well, and you see Newsom making the rounds of turning and trying to run to the. He's going to run because he's running to the middle right now.
Yeah.
He came out last month and said, "Well, obviously, boys shouldn't be playing in girls' sports."
Yep.
It's like, dude, that's not what you've been saying for the last 4 years. Like, do you know how easy it is to do that? As far as that goes, it's going to be. I think it's going to be really interesting because the Democrats, AOC, Crockett, some of those people, they're trying to go with the younger, but then they turn around and do something, to me, incredibly stupid, and name David Hogg as the vice chair of the Democratic Party. And it's like, really, that's who you think should be in the second in charge of the DNC?
Listen, man.
I mean, that kid, if that kid isn't just at a school shooting, and by the way, he was not really involved in the school shooting. From all reports, he was like on the other end of the school. He wasn't where the danger was. His life was never in danger. He got funded by some people that said, "Here's a young, good-looking, articulate guy."
I was danger close. It counts. He could have got a catch. He could have got a catch.
Yeah.
He's close enough.
A mortar might have gone off if I was only because I was 150 yards away. A mortar might have hit me. So, yeah, right. I was within range of a cruise missile, and so, but the Democrats, I think they do stuff like that, and they shoot themselves in the foot. And not to say Republicans aren't perfect. Don't get me wrong. Republicans do stupid things too. But ultimately, you and I are on the same page. I don't care who it is, as long as it's somebody that is going to actually go in and try to do the job and try to pass a budget and try to pass laws that actually have teeth and meaning and try to do the things that make this country a better place. And I mean, the budget, I don't know, call me crazy. I think there's certain things that should be done, like passing a budget.
Well,
we haven't had a budget I don't think we've had a budget signed and passed since like Clinton was in office. So at what point do you go, I would love, and I would love for Democrats to get behind this. I would love for Republicans to get behind this. All of the governors get together and do a constitutional Congress, since Congress isn't going to do it, and pass some new constitutional amendments, federal term
Like,
limits. The second being Congress shall pass no law from which they are exempt. And the third one being any year that a federal budget is not passed by the legal date, whatever date that is, shall make every member of Congress ineligible for re-election for 4 years. You pass those three, what does that do to this country?
so before we head out of here, you mentioned term limits, and I gotta bring it up. So the argument for the third term is that because the POTUS is the only elected official who has term limits and no other official has term limits, then his term limits is unconstitutional. So they should be able
Except
to
it's in the Constitution now. So.
which is bananas. But see, again, that goes back to pushing the limits of what I can and can't get away with. Like they know it's in the Constitution. I know they know. That's the thing that pisses me off. I know they know, but it's a great soundbite.
Isn't there a better argument? And I don't know. I'd have to go read what the exact wording is. But isn't the better argument to say, well, the Constitution says you can only be elected for 2 terms, and I haven't been elected for 2 terms. I was elected for 1, and now I'm elected for a different one, and so my time starts. To me, at least that's a more clever argument. I don't know. Maybe the Constitution is pretty clear. I think it's pretty clear regardless. He's not going to. But Liberty, I'm going to disagree with you. I used to believe the same thing. I used to think term limits, hey, every election is a term limit. But I think that the way the media works, the manipulation and the powers that be between the Republicans and the Democrats, and the uneducation, miseducation, de-education, non-education of the voting public makes it impossible to have a well-informed electorate. And so unless you're going to put litmus tests in, and the problem with that, or not even litmus tests, but general knowledge tests in place, and people will say, well, that's disenfranchising for poor people or whatever, which is kind of funny because it's like, I want to disenfranchise stupid people. Let's be honest. I don't want stupid people voting, but they're going to, because that's their right. And so whether I want it or not, like if somebody can't tell me how many Supreme Court justices there are, not their names, just how many. Like I think there's some very basic questions that should be involved.
You would eliminate 60% of voters who are eligible for voting.
Cool. I mean, we should come up with our civics test. The most basic. How many branches of government are there? How many members of the Supreme Court are there? Let's see. How many states are there?
Have you seen those man on the street interviews?
Oh yeah. But they take the worst. They purposely do the worst ones. You know. They probably interview 100 people. And
I'm sure they do. It's just hilarious, though. I'm just
they are
imagining. Yeah, I'm just imagining.
Liberty, absolutely. They could not pass that test. But I'm not even saying pass the citizen test. That's not even what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just the bare basic civics question.
Well,
the ones, and you don't have to score 100. But let's say 10 questions. And again, things like how many branches of government are there? And maybe one of them is you get lucky and name one of them. And maybe you even make it stupid. Like question 1 is how many branches of government are there? And the second one, name one of the 3 branches of government.
Let me ask you a question. If right now you are required to go renew your driving test after 5 years, how many people do you believe will be able to pass the driving test? Renewed. On percentage base.
If they knew, okay, well,
no, they didn't know.
They had to.
No, they didn't know. So you're no studying based off of experience, based off of your driving experience. So you've driven 5 years, and then they just randomly call you up and say, "Hey, you got 3 days to come renew your driver's test, or we're taking your license from you." How many people?
20% to be extremely optimistic.
That's your voting block.
Well, here's the thing. But remember, you're voting well, and the reason I say that though is because you also, a large number of drivers are over 60 years old and haven't taken a driver's test and the driver's test has changed.
Well, it's the same
So,
thing in Congress. A large number of our members of Congress are over 60 years old, and they haven't read the Constitution since they took a civics
oh,
class in the aughts, early
yeah,
aughts.
but we're not talking about the people that are in Congress. We're talking about the voters. I think you took the average. I believe if you took the average senator or congressman, and the questions we're asking, they're going to get up and down. They're going to get 90% right, because I'm talking about like, oh yeah. Do you think the average senator can say how many justices of the Supreme Court there are?
Senators, yes. Representatives,
Not even congressmen.
representatives
In the House. Out of the, yeah, no. I'll bet them. No, I think I don't think there are any that would probably miss that question. How many branches of government? They all get that one, right?
I'm not so sure, man. That is extremely optimistic for our representatives, man.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, I don't think they are effectively.
If you gave
word we use,
right, so
I don't know what the word.
Hold on, I'll give you. We got two candidates, right? And we can cut it off here. So
Okay.
we'll go on to final thought session. So I'll give you two
We
candidates.
Keep going. I don't care.
Okay. Well, you got Marjorie Taylor Greene representing the red team, and you got Jasmine Crockett representing the blue team, right? And we're gonna do the 10-question civics question. Who do you think gets the most right, or do you think either one of them pass?
What's passing out of 10?
We'll go 7 out of 10. We'll go 1990 standard, D or above.
Honestly, here's the crazy thing. I think they both get 9 out of 10 at least.
No way. I don't think MTG gets close.
Here's why. Because we're not talking about tough questions. We're not asking what article of the Constitution guarantees, the legislature is writing the laws. Okay. I'm talking the most, do I think they both know that there are 50 states? Yeah. Do I think they both know the capital of the United States of America is Washington, D.C.? Yes. Do I believe that they know how many senators each state has representing them?
We're going to put a poll up. We're going to put a poll up this week. I
am talking the most basic. Name one of the three. Can they name one of the three branches of government?
Listen,
yes,
man.
They can. I'm sure they can.
Listen, man.
I'm talking about stuff that is so ridiculously. What is the name of the war where the United States battled itself between the Confederacy and the Union? Do I think they both know that's the Civil War? Yes. What document is used as the basis of government? Now that one, does one of them say the Declaration of Independence instead of the Constitution? Maybe one of the two misses that one.
Wait a minute. Your own president, who was asked about the Constitution. Well, I'm on Declaration of Independence, and he said, "Well, it's a declaration, obviously, and it's a declaration of love and unity." And he was talking about when they asked him what was the Declaration of Independence. So if you got the POTUS saying this, right? I have to believe that we got just as many not so informed members of Congress about our founding documents and the importance thereof. Hell, if you asked them what was the preamble, I don't think half of them would know.
I'd have to review enough to remember the We the People.
I'm not even asking you to tell me what it says. Just what is it?
Oh, just the We the People.
If you ask the average congressman, where does the preamble go to? Does it go to the Pledge of Allegiance? Does it go to the U.S. Constitution? Does it go to the or just something random stuff, right? Or does it go to the Article of Confederation? Or does it go to the Bible? Yeah, I guarantee you, a significant number of our representatives will fail that question, and that is
okay.
Scary.
But the thing is, that's my point. I don't want it to be difficult to
That's
vote.
not difficult, though.
I understand that, but
far. That's like,
Okay, but here's
that's like asking Congressman, what are the colors of the flag? Washington, D.C. Goddamn right. All right, you good, Congressman. Go ahead and go.
so here's the funny thing, like that. Like if you that could be one of the questions. What are the three prominent colors on the flag? You might have some people like yellow and green. The Gadsden flag, that's the only flag I reckon. Or is it yellow and black? It's yellow and black. You know. So but preamble, okay, you could trip some people up with the preamble, sure. You know, what is how many questions or how many amendments are in the Bill of Rights? That would get some people. The original Bill of Rights. But again, if you're saying you still only need to get 7 out of 10, I think they all pass. I do think MTG and Crockett both, again, depending on which questions. And then what you have to do is you actually have to have about 20 questions. So when you hand it out, they're all different, just like in high school, you know. So you can't look over at somebody else. What'd you get for 3? I don't know. It's a different one than you.
Oh, God.
3 book, the Bible. No, that's not mine. Mine doesn't say the Bible on 3. Mine says the legislature.
All right.
What do you mean number 3?
So all right. So So I can cut this clean. So I can cut this point clean. If we were to give the members of Congress, the sitting members of Congress, a 20-question civics test, with the grading criteria being 70% or above, what is the percentage of sitting Congress members do you think will pass?
When we're talking about basic level civics.
Basic. We're talking ninth grade. What was ninth grade civics?
Ninth grade civics. I think there is a 95% pass rate at least.
No fucking way. No way. No way.
Now, high school civics, I think if you're talking high school civics, it probably drops down to around 85%.
So what do you think about members of, what do you think? Members of the administration. Members of the administration. How many do you think will pass? Same one you think 80? Okay, yeah, we're definitely cutting this up and I gotta get the comments. Matter of fact, this is gonna be the first segment we run this week because I have to hear the comments. There is no way.
I never see the comments anyway, so
I'm thinking 60% at best.
Well, and with that you could put a thing that says go to the poll and vote, and see what. But okay, but hold on. This goes back to a very similar thing in terms of if you ask the average person, if we asked you 20 questions about the country, about civics, first of all, how many people don't even know what civics is?
Right.
But if you were to say, we're going to ask you 20 questions, what would the average person, and again, let's go ninth grade civics or high school, because you're going to have a huge drop. Because I don't think even ninth graders, I think if you had ninth grade civics questions for ninth graders, they do better than the average American because hopefully they've been studying it that year.
Well,
but the further you get away from a civics class, it's like anything, you forget about it. Unless you're somebody who likes politics. Like you ask our audience, anybody who's watching this and is willing to pay attention to what we're saying, my guess is their knowledge on civics is actually probably pretty high, right?
I would hope.
But if you talk to Sports Bro, who is only worried about NFL or NBA or what's going on in the playoffs, yeah, I mean civics. I don't give a crap about what. I don't care about government stuff. What do I care?
I think
that's the person who's still going out and voting every 4 years.
Yeah, I think they
actually not even that though. Well, what's our voting turnout every year of eligible voters? Are we lucky to get? Have we even broken 50% recently?
No, I think the Biden one was like highest turnout because he was, you literally could do it from your couch, literally. You know what? I think they have a show, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader, for a reason.
Yeah.
And I am extremely pessimistic, so I'm betting low when it comes to that sort of thing.
So Liberty, I get your point. That said, knowing what they like and knowing why they like it, is the problem, because if you have a media and or a malleable population that can be corrupted by whatever force it may be, by the government or by the media or whoever it is, I think that that's where the problem becomes. If you are going to listen to Trump or Biden or MTG or OAC and say, oh, well, what they say is just good enough, I'm good. Nah, nah, nah.
Well,
That's the problem.
I'll give you a prime example, right? I give you a prime example. So they did a split poll when they was doing testing. They sent the poll out to Republican voters, and they asked them two questions. Out of the two policies, which policy did you prefer and why? The first policy was Obamacare. The second policy was the Affordable Care Act, right? And astoundingly, they voted overwhelmingly that they hated the Obamacare plan. They had every reason in the book about privacy and my lawyers and this, that, and the other. But on that same exact poll, the very next question, they voted overwhelmingly for the Affordable Care Act because it was a solid policy. So that's why Liberty know they need to know more than just the policy, because people, again, are ignorant and they can be manipulated easily.
Yeah. And if you did that same poll for Democrats and said, what was your favorite part of the Inflation Reduction Act?
Exactly.
For Democrats, 95% would say, well, it brought down inflation.
Yeah. It's
just how it
the
goes.
same thing. That's what I'm saying. So either red or blue is the same thing. Just the vast majority of people, they don't care to go past the headline, right? Or you can attach it. A prime example. What was the other one? The uproar about the emails, right? Or I'll give you a better one, right? Trump and Mar-a-Lago with the documents, right? It was absolutely evil. And then 2 weeks later, Biden had him in a Corvette in a garage, and everybody's like, "No, but it's the same thing. It's the same thing." So people are easily manipulating it, and that's a psychology thing, right? You know, it just depends on what your biases are.
Oh, Liberty, you're now making our argument for us. The information that they get, if it's not if kids are out of school, I would argue at least 90% of kids do not read a book after high school. I defend the right of people to remain stupid as well, but I don't want them voting.
They affect the rest of us though with their voting.
Yeah.
And but you know what? The cool thing about it, I found out. You know what's really cool about that is that's how America.
One of my kids tapping on the window.
No, you're good. You're good. That's how America always has been, right? So, matter of fact, what was the election cycle when David Crockett was getting elected into the Senate out of Tennessee? They did the exact similar thing, right? So a lot of this was the exact same way, right? But they used newspapers, and people were sending in comments and all this other stuff the exact same way that we're doing digitally, and it just showed that it just showed the majority of the country. If you don't recognize the name, or if you don't recognize the policy that your favorite politician has associated the name with, you don't give two shits about it, right? So it's not unique what we're going through. It just, I guess, with the access, we're able to see it more abundantly, right? Like America has always been dumb. We've always been misinformed or easily manipulated. Americans have when it comes to voting.
So I think there's a little bit difference here. Because in the 1700s and 1800s, the problem was there weren't enough schools and there weren't enough kids going to school and getting formal educations because of the agrarian style of America, some of those.
Fair enough.
So those that went to school got a pretty decent education, more classical education. 20th century rolls around. There you go, low, right.
Right.
Then you roll around into the 20th century, and this is when the public school system starts coming into play, and they start making it basically some of the, well, I mean, it was social engineering by a lot of the mega, the Rockefellers, and I'm not saying Rockefeller himself, but potentially because I'm not sure,
yeah.
but Rockefeller, Chase, Ford, all those guys, and they
Yeah.
were basically saying we need workers, so we're going to educate them just well enough to be able to read an instruction manual, so then go work in the factories. So until we get to the point where education becomes a priority, and I don't know if that will ever happen. I don't know. It's amazing to me. I talk to my kids about this, that they don't like to read, and they don't like to read books. And my youngest, she does TikTok or whatever. And the amazing thing is, like, if you're a boomer or you're a Gen Xer, you look at this and you go, this is the most incredible thing in the history of humanity. This little device is more revolutionary than airplanes, than nuclear power, than fire. Like,
Yep.
really, this is it. This is the pinnacle of human evolution where we're at, and human knowledge. And these kids use it to watch silly videos about silly things and lip syncs and whatever else. And if you say, hey, I'll give you $10 if you go on and you actually read a book, and they go, man, it's not worth it. It's such a disconnect. And when idiocracy becomes the reality of whether it's the United States or whatever, I don't know if it'll quite get that bad, because by then we'll be under the Japanese overlords who actually are still worried about education.
Yeah, I want to bring this up. So I left it up for a reason. So Liberty, when he was talking about, in rural areas with low literacy rates, Crockett's legend being passed around like folklore is the exact same thing that AI is doing, and deep fake manipulation. It's the same thing, right? It is the same thing. And I'll give you a prime example, right? People will say, oh, well, Biden was good for the economy. Eventually, sure, there are some things that could be manipulated, or they'll say, or I'll give you the immigration issue, right? Oh, immigration, this, that, and the other. But then you tell them, well, President 44 deported more people than Trump and Biden combined, and they'd be like, oh, well, I didn't know that, right? So it's the same thing. There's a difference. We have access. We have access now to more knowledge than at any other time in human history. Yet we are the most ignorant. I think we are at the precipice of being the most ignorant society in human history. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think it's by design. And I said this before with the racist diatribe, right? Like, they used to have this racist trope that came out in the 90s. We used to hear it a lot. And I think I told you about it before. Is if you wanted to hide anything from a nigga, put it in a book, right? And I think just like yeah, you can't say that. I got this part. So I think just like with that, just like with crack, it spilled over into society's mainstream. What was once meant for a certain segment, right? Our poorest and our uneducated, has now spilled over into the mainstream. And now it is normal to be uneducated. It is normal to be loud and wrong, or loud and misinformed, than to be quiet and knowledgeable. So, but yeah, I talked a lot, man. Go ahead.
Okay, no, that's fine, because I want to talk about Thad's point and then keep going through.
Yep.
And Liberty's last point. Okay. Thad said, we place a value in everything but education. We punish people for becoming educated in this country. I don't know if punished is the right word. I think mocked might be the right word. But that's been going on for a long, long time. Because when you have the kids going out in public schools, those kids who excelled were called bookworms. They were called eggheads. They were, oh, look at that nerd. This happened to me back in the, I was growing up in the 80s. And, oh, what a nerd. Oh, he's just a total. He can go, look at him. he does his tests and get A's on everything. What a nerd. And like, and then you had, and the ironic thing is then you had a movie like Revenge of the Nerds come out, and suddenly it was like, maybe it's okay to be a nerd, right?
Get out of my head, man.
You know, the nerds got the nerds, you know, hey, look at the end of the movie. The nerd got the girl. Out, right? So there's this whole turnaround. And you started seeing the jocks kind of as the big meathead idiots. But ironically, you know, most jocks, honestly, most jocks do actually pretty well in school. So it's this kind of this idea, this stereotyping that happens. But Liberty, as far as by design or conspiracy, the fact that people or the fact that people are lazier now, I do think originally, again, I do think it was by design to some degree because those people that were funding a lot of the education initiatives in this country were the very large, powerful men that ran factories and things that you need to have a certain level of, I don't want to say stupidity because that's not the right word. You have to have apathy. You have to have a certain level of apathy to be able to take a nut and put it onto a post and repeat 5,000 times a day because your job is to put the gears onto the gearbox, and that is your job, and you have to do that 5,000 times a day. If you don't have a level of apathy, you're going, what am I doing? This is the dumbest thing ever. But here's the funny thing. I've been making this argument now for almost 20 years. We are all now George Jetson. Do you remember what George Jetson's job at Spacely Sprockets was on the Jetsons? He pressed a button. That was his job. What is the service industry now? It's pressing a button. You go online and you are pressing buttons, or you're a bank teller and you press buttons, or whatever. We are a service industry driven country that has got away from building things and doing things, ironically, from doing the sprocket to pressing buttons. But it's the same idea. So I think that it did come off of that. But now, Liberty, yes, you're absolutely right, and that's a whole nother thing we've talked about. I think some of our upcoming guests, we've got a guest that's coming up in the next 2 months. We're going to be talking about schools and how schools are failing and anti-intellectualism. I've started reading a book that she brought up. We've talked to her, and we're going to bring it. The idea of Liberty, they want to work less part-time work. They want their ideas respected. Here's the problem. That's not even what they want. They want to be able to become rich and famous because they made funny videos.
Yep.
And when you have an unrealistic expectation of, I'm going to become an influencer and I'm going to make money because I can create, and you see it. There are people who do this. Mr. Beast, I think we all know who Mr. Beast is. I read a report that Mr. Beast was offered $1 billion for his channels and his content, and to continue to $1 billion. And he turned it down, and that was the right move. Who broke it down and said, with how much he's making, he shouldn't sell it because this is what he does. But for every one Mr. Beast, there's 1,000 guys like KG and I who do podcasts that aren't going to go anywhere. KG and I really don't do this because it's like, oh, we're gonna be big, we're gonna get big, and we're gonna get a big audience, and we're gonna start making money, we're gonna be able to retire. For us, like KG and I, my wife has said, why do you do that? You guys don't make any money on it, blah, blah, blah. I say, it's not about money. This guarantees that I can talk to my friend for an hour or two every week. And so this started off as us just BSing over lunches, and it's evolved into us being able to talk online the same way as we did in lunches. And we think it's interesting for us, so maybe other people find it interesting. So AI is going to do a lot of this stuff. AI is going to Grok. You can make music on some of this AI stuff that sounds.
China's kicking our ass in content production anyway, right? Like that's
yeah.
We are.
But AI will never be able to sit down and have a discussion that, to me, I don't think, though. I don't think AI will be able to sit down and have an off the cuff discussion in a way that is interesting enough to keep it involved. But I could be wrong, because I've had some discussions with Grok recently and tried to trip up the AI, and I've been able to. I've been able to get AI to contradict itself, and then suddenly it goes, "Oh, you're right to point out the contradiction." It's like, yeah, because the algorithm tells you to do that, right? China's not way smarter than us.
That's
China
what
just has way more people.
that's
And
what
so
Vivek got in trouble for. That's what got him kicked out of Doge.
yeah. So here's that. I agree. It will never replace human creativity completely, but it will be able to create mediocre content that people will watch and ingest enough that it will damage the average mediocre. So if I'm a writer for the Hallmark movie, if I'm a writer of Hallmark movies, I'm scared crapless about AI. Because if I go in and say, "Hey AI, write me a script, go back and read all the scripts from Hallmark movies over the last 20 years, and write me a script about a young girl in a small town uh, that does this, this, and this, and kind of just put it in, and it'll spit out a very generic, and somebody will produce it because you already see Hallmark making the movies like that. True comedy and truly interesting movies, are you going to have a AI be able to do what Christopher Nolan does? No. Are you going to be able to have them do what Larry David does? No. Are you going to have an AI late night host that is basically Space Ghost? Yeah, you will,
I think,
and people will watch it.
was that Gene Simmons that talked about? I think Gene Simmons had an issue with that a while. Like he said something to the effect of people are afraid to suck, right? And that's what drives a lot of this AI. Like back in the day, you had to like get some friends and like get booed off of talent shows in high school, and get booed out of a couple of bars and play crappy music in your garage for a couple of years before you got to that point. But now everything is so instant gratification. People don't want to go through that sucky phase, right? And I think we're a product of that on our own, because we kind of steamrolled it as a society with shows like American Idol and this, that, and the other. We give the illusion of overnight success, but the reality is it takes years of hard work to become an overnight success, right? Like, and that's where people, not only in entertainment, but people are realizing that in schools too. Like, yo, nobody wants to put in the work to learn, right? They want to micro learn. They want to do everything in micro doses. What's the most bang I
Why?
can put in the least amount of time? Yeah.
Why
So
do I need to know? Why do I
yeah,
need to know? I've got it all right here.
yeah. And I don't know, man. I think we're past the tipping point of changing.
Maybe. I hope not.
Well,
Um,
we again, like I said, history with its indicators in the 80s, right? We had a president out of California who was a governor who had an issue with an educated African American populace, right? So his solution to that was to raise the prices of schools, right? And I think that was the creation of our friends Fannie and Freddie, right? Who with the privatization of student loans, and that's when you see that huge boom in tuition. So we got the
but then you had W come in and do No Child Left Behind. So
well
I mean,
again too, but that was No Child Left Behind with the addition of cutting out the service courses, which led to creative thinking and entrepreneurship, right? It was No Child Left Behind, but at the same time, we're taking out your shop, we're taking your music class, we're taking out.
oh, for sure. Liberty, it probably didn't even take a minute. However long it took you to write in the prompt, it probably took AI half a second to actually create music.
So
But
yeah,
I think that Thad's point is right in that whatever AI can do, it can't do creativity better than a human. I
yeah,
think that's kind of the big thing. Now we dumb ourselves down to a large degree because I've always argued with things like American Idol. Okay, who wins American Idol? For the most part, there is some talent, they can sing for the most part, right? But do you think Bob Dylan could have won American Idol?
No,
Of course not. Tom Petty?
no, of course
No.
not.
There are some, like, does Olivia Newton-John win American Idol? Absolutely.
Does Bruce Springsteen win American Idol?
No. Not a chance. But then again, we also have transgenders that are winning women's pageants. We have shall we say, gravitationally blessed women that are now in beauty pageants. Look, personally, I think a beauty pageant should be good-looking
about
people.
Beauty, yeah, you
It's a
should
beauty
be
pageant.
natural. Yeah, you should be natural. Like you shouldn't be able to do. See, and that's you know what, man. I don't know if we got enough time for
And
that.
and people might get mad at me and say, "How dare you say that? It's about looks." It's a beauty pageant. The whole point. Now, if you want to have just a pageant for the most talented look, I'm gonna okay. So when I went on my mission in Taiwan, there was a sister missionary, and if this gets back to her, sorry, Sister Ramirez, who I did not. I thought Sister Ramirez had a lot of. Sister Ramirez and I did not see eye to eye on a lot of things. Okay, after our missions, now she went back to Wyoming. She won the Miss Wyoming pageant. Now she was very talented musically, and I think, but as far as like attractiveness, I didn't see it. Now I'm not going to win any beauty pageants or handsome pageants either. So don't get me wrong. I'm very realistic about it. But when I saw that, I was just like, seriously? I thought it was a beauty pageant. So I think we get away. We've evolved in ways that are good, and we've evolved in ways that are bad. And I think there is a way back. And honestly, I think AI is going to either pull us back from the precipice or push us over with both hands. Because again, I look at AI and I say, if AI is done in a way that is for the benefit of mankind, we are going to turn the corner and take off in every field imaginable, because AI will be able to train people how to learn and push them in ways. Again, like I would love to have a situation where my 11-year-old sat down in front of a computer, and according to what interactions AI has, real AI had with my daughter, AI comes back and says, all right, my daughter is really talented in this, so we're going to make it harder for her to learn, challenge her more in English because she's a good writer or whatever it is, right? And where she's not as strong at math, I'm going to slow down a little bit, make sure she understands the basic more, and do all that. They can liberty, but it's not in a way that I think is intuitive enough to hand my daughter off to the AI.
That was the Chinese. Remember, we watched a video a couple of months ago about the Chinese school system who had integrated that. So you have your own
Japanese,
your own AI tutor specifically tied into your lesson plan. So the teacher would give the instruction, but based on your performance in homework and classwork, the tutor would then create an individualized plan on your strengths and weaknesses to help you. I think that would be phenomenal. But here's the problem, though. That leads to a more educated society. And a society of thinkers is dangerous to those in power. So do I think it's by design? Sure. It's easy for me to fill your algorithms up with mundane dances and trends and stuff that's going to keep you distracted, as opposed to give you the information and the tools you need to know that I'm stealing from you and I'm not working in your best interest. Because the minute you find out that I'm not working in your best interest, you're going to try to hold me accountable. And that's the last thing I want you to do.
my wife spends time online. Not a ton, but she does. My kids do. My wife didn't know what was going on with India and Pakistan until I told her a couple days ago. We were at the brink of nuclear war, and it never came up in her feed. And yes,
Yeah,
the government
absolutely.
is intentionally keeping voters stupid. Yes.
Absolutely. I will tell you that what happened with the governor from California who won the presidency, it started with him.
It
And
started before that. Well,
well,
before that. It started
no, no,
early in
no,
the
no,
20th century.
no. I'm talking about the intent. The intent was to
So am
the
I.
intent the intent was to shift the intent was to shift the lower income and disenfranchised from being able to be self-sufficient, right? So what happened was you saw a big shift in the 80s where they took out the skills classes, right?
Oh,
Both parties. So they took out the skills and entrepreneurial classes, right? Because I think we kind of talked about this with Du Bois and Washington, right? Where one says, "Hey, man, as long as you have a skill, you're useful." And then Du Bois was like, "Nah, nah, nah. Go to college, get an education, and then you'll be more useful," right? So we kind of saw that. We kind of saw that playing out. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That we kind of saw that playing out. So what happened is they got rid of the auto shops, they got rid of the home ecs, they got rid of all the service-based classes, right? And they filled it with all this, mundane stuff that's crazy, right? And then they allowed the students to rack up all this debt, getting these degrees and stuff that holds no quantifiable value, right? Um, and over time, it just amplified, right? So it started in the 80s. You had this kind of resurgence in the 90s where you had this um, focus shift from being a self-sufficient individual to go to college, get an education, right? So society shifted. And then in the 90s, everybody got degrees and they had all kinds of weird degrees in philosophical arts. And I got a degree in 13th century painting and all this other stuff, right? And then as that became more lucrative, people started to see it as a business opportunity, right? So then they realized that, hey, if I keep offering you degrees and I keep raising the requirements, I can keep getting money because you're going to have to keep getting loans to pay for college. So yeah, I do believe it's all by design. And if I got to go get my 10-4 hat, I will absolutely go get my 10-4 hat. But I am convinced the government wants to keep us stupid.
I will
And
say that the pendulum is swinging back to a degree. At least here in Georgia, there are opportunities for, and in Texas too.
it is, yeah.
Construction is a class
Yep.
you can take. You can specialize in
Yep.
construction. You could do cosmetology.
Yep.
Here, I've seen shop here is actually one of the classes had a firefighter. uh, they could go in and they were voluntary firefighters and they
Yep.
could get some different. So it's kind of swinging back where college degrees now are not necessarily the end all be all.
Right.
And I've tried to push my son towards plumbing, honestly, because I think everybody needs a toilet. And but if that's not what he wants to do, so be it. Uh, even and the arts are important, but we also push the idea that everybody can be an artist, and there's no such thing as good or bad art. It's all subjective. Meanwhile, the government went in and bought all the Truman Capote art just to confuse the Russians. So there's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes,
Hey man,
and I agree that degrees used to be.
have to
I do believe degrees
go.
used to be about you went to school for 4 years and you showed employers that you had the willingness to go in and
Yep.
stick with something for 4 years, and then that showed something. But now I'm with KJ. It's a moneymaker. And you have professors that go in and they check the box, and as long as they get their really pretty solid paycheck without having to do too much, especially once they get tenure, then they can do whatever they want. And there's some legitimate pushback for that. And so I think I'll go last. I'll go last word for me,
Yep.
and then KJ, you can wrap it up.
Mhm.
But I think that as parents and grandparents, it is going to be imperative that the adults that care make sure that the children understand why education is important, why critical thinking is important, and then if the kids aren't willing to do it, force their kids to learn how to critically think. Because if you and I've been caught sometimes, if you're not able to tell the difference between a real image and an AI image, and it's only going to get worse, you're going to have to really put on your cynical glasses and go, it's all fake. And so I'm going to have to figure this out on my own. And maybe that's going to be the positive pushback of I can't trust anybody. So if I can't figure this out on my own, then it's on, I'm not going to believe anybody else until I accept it for myself. And maybe that's the basis of religion too. And maybe that's what it becomes, is the religion of self-education, which is not a bad thing.
That's it. I like it, man. I guess I would just piggyback off of that and say, no ruling society will give you the information to overthrow them. Right? I've always been a firm believer that I will teach my kids everything they need to know, and I will allow the system to supplement my teaching because it's my responsibility. Nobody's going to teach my kid Black history because it's not their responsibility. Nobody's going to teach my kid history or math, or it's my responsibility. The school system will supplement, and then they do a shitty job at doing that. So personal responsibility, training your tribe, getting your own people where they need to be. I think we got to get back to that. We've supplemented too many of our responsibilities to the government, and now it's time as a society to take back our own responsibility. Right? We can no longer blame the school systems for our kids being dumb. As a parent, you have to take some rights, right? And you just can't rely on the government. It was never meant to be relied on, and people have perverted it and manipulated your belief system to making you feel that way. So you got to take your power back. Self-sustain, get in the garden, learn how to feed yourself, learn how to cook, learn how to educate yourself, and get ready. Because nobody knows. Yeah. Parents got to get educated too. Yeah, parents got to get educated too. Yeah, everybody. It's a societal issue. It's systemic, and the only way to break it is to be the first one. Somebody got to be the first one. Other than that, Lance, you got anything else? Utah, hey man.
NBA draft tomorrow night. Let's go, Jazz. Hey, let's let the ping pong balls fall in your favor. May the NBA ping pong balls be forever in the Jazz's favor. Because if there's something we need a white superstar in Salt Lake City.
A white superstar. Man, I'm done with y'all. We see y'all next week, man. Hey, Liberty, Thad, everybody, thanks for coming through. Ali, I know you gone, baby, but thank you for stopping, dude. We always appreciate y'all. See y'all next week. We outie.
Gee, Ray, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
All right, yo, let's get into it.
Try to take over the world. Try to take over the world.
And greatest chaplain in the world, Mr. Lance O'Neill.
Try to take over the world.